Almost 10 years after the release of the original PS3 game, The Last of Us has been remastered once again for the PlayStation 5, trying to match the fidelity and some of the gameplay mechanics of The Last of Us Part 2. But is it worth that $70 price tag? What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Chamber, and it has been a long time. Apologies to everybody. It has been probably 3 months, if not more, since I've done my last review of Elden Ring. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I was in a funk to where I just did not want to play video games. Every single new release that came out, I tried to play it and lost interest within an hour. Evil Dead, The Quarry, even, what the fuck was that, Stray, the cat game. Yeah, luckily I didn't have to pay for that one. But nonetheless, I've just been in one of those moods where I've been focused on movies and video games have not interested me. But we're back with The Last of Us Part 1. The Last of Us is one of my favorite video games of all time. I would say it's probably number 3 on my list of all time, only behind Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil 4. And it's a game that I have replayed continuously and continue to gush about almost 10 years later. So I had to see what this PS5 remaster was going to bring, and now I'm here to talk to all of you about whether or not it's actually worth buying, unless you are a Last of Us nut like myself. So not too long ago, we heard rumors and rumblings that they were going to be doing a Last of Us remake as well as a Last of Us multiplayer game. After the massive financial success of Last of Us Part 2, pretty much was guaranteed that they realized the franchise potential and they were going to start digging into our pockets with as many different versions of Last of Us as we could get. And I, like everybody else, was very confused and concerned when they said that they were doing a remake of The Last of Us. It's only been like 9 years. What are we doing? Why are we remaking this? Focus on The Last of Us Part 3. What the fuck, guys? And then eventually it was revealed it's not actually a remake, it was just a remaster from the ground up, as far as graphic fidelity, as far as the environments, as far as character models, as far as using the native 4K and the fidelity mode and implementing all of that, changing up how the game flows a little bit to kind of match more of what they achieved with The Last of Us Part 2. And I at least had a big giant sigh of relief going, whew, all right, fine, good. You're not doing anything crazy. I'll see what you have in store for me whenever this is released. So starting off with the positives for The Last of Us Part 1, I think they absolutely achieved everything that they set out to do with this game. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks like a modern game. It looks just like the quality that we came to see in The Last of Us Part 2, and this now is the definitive version of this game. If you have never played The Last of Us before and you have the interest to check it out and you want to spend the money rather than playing the PlayStation Plus version of The Last of Us Remastered for PS4, I would absolutely recommend checking this one out because this is now the best version of the game out there. It is exactly the same game, the same skeleton, the same dialogue, the same cinematics, the same gameplay for the most part as the original game, but it is cleaned up to the point where it looks like something that was released for this console. Especially the character models and the character animations, like within the cinematics and even like the mid gameplay cinematics that we get, it just looks incredible. It makes these characters look even more like people. And it just adds this new level of immersion to a game that was already like a masterclass as far as immersion and really just diving into a world. And so once again, this is now the definitive version of this game. Everything that they wanted to do as far as bringing that game into the modern era and making it feel like it is the counterpart to Last of Us Part 2 that was an absolute cinematic achievement in and of itself, they achieved it. Kind of goes without saying, but as I've said, The Last of Us is one of my favorite video games of all time. I do think it's the best story that we have ever gotten in a video game. Whether or not it's my number one or not, it's the best story and the best character arcs that we've had in a video game in my entire life, in history. And so, even though this is a new version of that game, it's still the same exact game. And so everything that I have always said in praising The Last of Us core game, with the story, the characters, the emotions, with the pacing of the game, with the side characters, everything. This is one of the greatest video games ever made, and all of that translates over to this new version. You also get some added immersion in there with the DualSense controller, to where you get like the bow and arrow tension and the triggers, the adaptive triggers. Whenever you're running through rain, you can feel in the haptic feedback. I still think the DualSense controller is the biggest achievement of this generation of PlayStation. You know, there's some things that I love about the PS5 console, but it's not a gigantic leap over PS4 the way that PS4 was for PS3 and previous generations. But that controller is the biggest thing to me that is the selling point for the PlayStation 5, and they continue to utilize that in games in ways that just, it really makes the PS5 the best gaming experience for me personally. And again, adds a whole other layer to this game that we never experienced before, that does nothing but enhance what we already got. Moving on to the mixed elements of The Last of Us Part 1, while I totally respect, and there's a large part of me that values the fact that they did not tinker with this game at all, it is exactly the same as it was in the original PS3 game, as it was in the PS4 remastered version. They've just cleaned it up. They have not added segments, they have not taken anything away, they have not incorporated any Easter eggs or anything else to kind of tie it a little closer to The Last of Us Part 2. There's a part of me that likes that, because they're keeping perfection as is. Why fuck with it? I totally understand that, and I totally respect that approach, especially in the fact that there's going to be a lot of people, I assume, that are going to play this game for the very first time using The Last of Us Part 1 for PS5, and you don't want them to have a lesser experience because of something that you've added or taken away. Keep perfection, perfection. Totally get that. But at the same time, this is the second time we've had this game remastered, and when you're going to remaster it specifically to make it match more of what we got in The Last of Us Part 2, I think there was room to add a few things. Certainly don't take anything away, but I think they could have added something. I think they could have added Abby in the final act, or an epilogue that wasn't there before, or they could have even just taken the Left Behind like DLC chapter and incorporated that into the middle of the game to where it feels like a chapter of the game. That's actually something I thought they were going to do, and they didn't. You have to access the Left Behind through the main menu. I wanted something different, you know, something just to justify doing this again, aside from look how fucking pretty we can make this. Because yeah, you impressed the hell out of me. You did a great job, you achieved what you wanted to set out, but I've experienced this game like 9 or 10 times. There's a part of me that wants a little something different. And especially when we get into my one negative of this game, I think it would have justified that a little bit more if you had given us a little something that we haven't seen before. Even if it's small, even if it's just minor things, just to enhance this, or to add a little bit more of a through line, an extra character, an extra scene, something that ties into The Last of Us Part 2. I think diehard Last of Us fans would have appreciated the hell out of that, because I know that I would have. And now the one negative with The Last of Us Part 1 is that $70 price tag. Look, I am a Last of Us fanatic, and even I winced at that price tag. Not knowing whether or not this game was going to give us anything new, that was a bit of an ask. And it's only because it's The Last of Us that they have the balls to ask for that amount of money for the second remaster of this game. This game should be $50. Look, it's worthy of a $70 price tag if this was a game that was released for the very first time today. I mean, it's worthy of a $100 price tag if you experience it for the first time, because this is just one of those games that absolutely, it defines multiple generations of gaming. It's a masterful piece of storytelling. But a lot of us have played the fuck out of this game for almost 10 years. And you want another $70 out of us to play it again? No, sorry, Charlie, that's not how it works. So this is one of those things where, as much praise as I will give this game, I will tell you flat out, if you're not somebody that has to play this, you're a Last of Us fanatic, or you're somebody that has never experienced the game before and you want this to be your first experience, mostly those people. If you're not a part of those two groups, wait. Wait until this thing is discounted, wait until it eventually goes to PlayStation Plus, something, because if you're somebody that played The Last of Us, you're a casual fan, or you didn't like it enough to really go out and immediately get a remaster, but you would kind of want to revisit it, don't go out and pay $70 to revisit it, because unfortunately it's not really anything new or different aside from just a very cleaned up and the best looking version of that story. But the core gameplay, you're going to get the exact same experience as far as the feels and the emotions and everything they want you to feel with the story with either of the previous two versions. So overall, guys, this is a fantastic remaster if you are an absolute fan of this franchise, but it is not a must-buy until that price tag drops quite a bit. So if you are a fan, you know who you are, go out, spend the money if you think it's worth it. If you are hesitant whatsoever, just pump the brakes and wait for a discount. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, click over here for the playlist of all of my video game reviews from 2022, and I'm also gonna put my original review of The Last of Us up here where I get more in depth on the story and the characters. Thank you so much for watching, and like and share this video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything in the future. Next will probably be God of War Ragnarok in November. And as always, guys, remember, the Game Chamber is Commander Shepard's favorite channel on the YouTubes.